everybody. They were all stuffing their marijuana in their socks, under their hats, in their sleeves. And I thought, my God, is everybody a criminal?
We all grew up inside a story. And for some of us, that story is simple. But for others, it's spectacular.
I'm going to find purpose in my life. I'm going to save people from the stormy seas. And the other part was, I'm going to go bust drug dealers. It was my teenage rebellion.
Leslie Bradford Scott grew up in what looked like a movie. Her father driving a Rolls-Royce, bringing a Pink Floyd concert to a small town, $1 million diamonds. But movies end, and real life doesn't. At 12, Leslie came home to police on her lawn. At 15, she had a gun pressed to her skin over a diamond that wasn't hers. At 16, she buried her brother.
I was even more alone because my brother was my only ally. That was very difficult.
And years after her father died, his 175,000-word prison manuscript surfaced. And the story she thought she knew cracked open again.
The truth doesn't always set you free. It's highly destabilizing. It'll often bring down your whole life, and you have to take that shrapnel and put it back together the way you want to. Build something durable with it.
This isn't about crime. It's about what happens when the myth you were raised on collapses. And you have to decide who you are without it.
My entire life, I didn't feel I mattered. And now I know that I matter.
Hi, it's Tony Chapman. Thank you for listening to Chatter That Matters, presented by RBC. If you can, please subscribe to the podcast. And ratings and reviews, well, they're always welcome and they're always appreciated.
Leslie Bradford Scott, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Tony. I'm excited to be here.
I met your father through your 10-year-old eyes. Who would I meet?
My dad was like a high beam on a moonless night. He walked into a room and he lit everybody up. And he was the only guy I knew that could insult a perfect stranger and then get them laughing at the same time.
And how did you feel within that massive halo that your father cast? Did you feel chosen? Do you feel that he had enough time for you?
Absolutely not. I felt completely invisible. And my entire childhood was spent trying to earn his attention.
You talk about in your book, and we're going to spend some time on it, but just, this bigger than life, driving a Rolls-Royce, he brings Pink Floyd to Hamilton. But you're 12 years old and you come home one day and you've got police on the lawn. Take me back to how you felt. What are the eyes of a 12-year-old when you're coming home and expecting to share your day and your day's turned upside down?
I knew my dad was a very public person. Because of the concerts, he was always on the front page of the newspaper, the Hamilton Spectator. He brought other bands in like Paul Anka, Johnny Mathis, Bob Hope. So he was always public facing, and there was always people coming and going and very important people around. I knew he was different and I knew he was important, but I was absolutely shocked to see police on our front lawn. I had no idea what was going on. Because my grandmother, she always watched the streets of San Francisco. It was the only experience I had with the police. And she was always complaining about crime in the United States. So to see the police on your front lawn and a moving truck and people moving your possessions onto this truck and have no idea what's going on. And then my grandmother and my mother were standing there with our dog Penny and said, get in the car. And they had just one suitcase for me. And they shoved me in my grandmother's Pontiac Le Mans, and off we went, heading south to the U.S. border, and I had no idea why.
And so you end up in Florida, you reunite with your dad, and he turns you into a mule. And I don't mean the animal mule, but he's getting you to carry diamonds for him. And in one of those trips, it wasn't a simple FedEx delivery, was it?
No, I was 15 years old, and I thought, when you're 15, you think you're grown up. And I thought, I was mature and he was treating me like I was responsible and important. Finally, he was paying attention to me. Finally, I got to do something for him. So I went in my convertible car. I met this person on the street on Los Olas Boulevard. He climbed in the car and put a gun to my arm and said, give me the stone. I had no idea what was happening. My heart stopped. It was just panic. And when I got home, And I told my dad, he wasn't concerned at all about me. That was really hard to see. He was only concerned about the stone. But in his manuscript, he says it's the other way around. He said he only cared about me.
You're so young. As you said, even though you thought you were 15 and grown up, and so much is happening. And then a year later, your brother dies. And you're left with two grieving parents that quickly spiral into substance abuse. Did you even get a hug? Did you get a sense of love? Or did you realize from that point forward, Leslie Bradford was going to be on her own?
I think I always thought I was on my own because my parents were never available to me. And it was my brother who was my force. Like he was my ally in the family. And ever since we were little kids, we spent all of our time together. When we lost him, and my mother was even more checked out. She just stayed in bed all day on pills, and my dad was in the bottle. And my sister was off with her boyfriend. So I was even more alone because my brother was my only ally. That was very difficult.
And then this young kid that I'm imagining, deceased brother, his jewelry stolen, and you decide to take matters in your own hands.
Yes. So one day, we were living in a condo at this point, or we were robbed. And my dad called the police and he said the police weren't going to do anything about it. I thought, well, I'm going to be a detective. Like, this is the only thing we have left of my brothers. I went down to the guardhouse and I checked the logs and I recognized one of my dad's associates who wasn't supposed to be there. And my dad says he wasn't there. And I thought he stole it. So I stole my father's 45. I got the address for this guy from the Rolodex on his desk and showed up at his house with the gun. He was leaving his house, and I told him I was going to shoot him if he didn't give me my brother's jewelry back. He hopped in the car, and it resulted in a high-speed chase until we got to the Fort Lauderdale Executive Airport, and I thought, oops, I don't think I want to be caught here with a gun. But I was shaking. All I could see was red.
And did you start thinking that maybe inside you, this little girl had inherited too much of her dad's DNA, that you're taking matters in your own hands, and in that hand was a 45?
Actually, I didn't have that thought at all, Tony. I only thought of justice. It was me that would get the justice. If nobody else would, I would be the one to do it. I would appoint myself law and order. But I didn't have that thought. No, it never even occurred to me.
And then you go off and basically say, I've had enough of this life. Underage, you join the Coast Guard. But even within the Coast Guard, you witness corruption and you stay silent. Did that start making you question values, morality, moral compass? Was it just simply, I have nowhere else to go, so I'm just going to keep quiet and go about my job?
Well, as a teenager, I thought my dad was a drug dealer. So when I was 17 and joined the Coast Guard, I thought I'm going to do two things. I'm going to find purpose in my life. I'm going to save people from the stormy seas because my brother was a diver. That was his career. And he loved the water. So I would repeat that. I would go save people's lives. And the other part was, I'm going to go bust drug dealers. It was my teenage rebellion. And I was idealistic. And I thought that was the way to do it. I wasn't at my base for not even a couple months when I was on this bust. It was 14 tons of marijuana. It was a Canadian sailboat that was smuggling it. I was downstairs doing a watch. And everybody on the base, my commanding officers, they were all stuffing their marijuana in their socks, under their hats, in their sleeves. And I thought, my God, is everybody a criminal? Is everybody at it? It wasn't the silence that made me think I was a mirror to my father. It was that my idea of humanity was shattered. My idealism just went away, and I thought, you cannot trust anybody. There is nobody. I can't trust my parents, and I can't trust law enforcement.
And not trying to play armchair psychologist here, but your next move in your life looks like you're trying to find the last resemblance of Law and Order, where you marry a Green Beret.
Look, my dad was a charming, dangerous narcissist. And when I met my Green Beret husband, he was a charming, dangerous narcissist. It was like putting on a fuzzy bathrobe and bunny slippers. That's what it felt like.
He turns out to be even more than what you just described him. He drains your accounts, leaves you with children to feed. You're working 60 hours a week selling cars on commission. But somehow, in all of that, you start writing stories and Post-it notes between customers. Was stories at least a sense of release that I could at least fabricate a better life than the realities that the cards had been dealt to me?
The stories come from when I was a little girl, and I approached my dad in the kitchen and said very confidently, I was about 10, I said, Dad, I know what I want to be when I want to grow up, or when I grow up. I want to be a writer and I want to be a pilot. I'm going to fly. I'm going to be an airline captain and fly jets all week. And then I'm going to come home and I'm going to write books about my adventures. So I knew I wanted to be a writer when I was a little girl. So and my dad said, well, girls don't fly airplanes and you can't make writing pay and you're not smart enough. So as I'm standing there day after day in the showroom selling cars thinking, is this really my life? Is this the rest of my life? Why don't I try being a writer? That was in my heart. It's still in my heart. That's where the Post-it notes came in, that I could write screenplays on them and then at night go type all those Post-it notes into my computer.
How therapeutic was that for you to just start writing and realizing you were in fact controlling your destiny, even if it was just simply putting words to paper?
What felt like a shift, a positive shift, was in 90 days, I wrote a screenplay that won the Best Screenplay Award at an international film festival. It took me 90 days to write it. And that confirmed, oh my God, my dad was wrong. I do have talent. I have talent. I can do this. That was a breakthrough.
And the success you had as a screenwriter and an author allowed you to create this enterprise coming out of Walton Wood Farm. Tell me a little bit about that.
I met my second husband and we bought a farm and it needed a lot of work. And he said, well, if we buy this farm, you're going to have to figure out a way to make it pay because small farms don't pay. And so I took my screenwriting skills and all the problems I had in my life and everything I did to survive as a single mom, and I wrote those into fun labels and created stories out of personal care products so that they'd be gifts that were funny and meaningful. For example, you could get a hand cream, but the label said "a week from hell," and it had some fun copy on it, and give it to somebody who was having a hard time to cheer them up. And so those screenwriting skills came in very handy to write the copy on all my hundreds of products.
We come back. Leslie shares more about what was buried inside her dad's prison manuscript, how she sees herself. And then I asked her, what would she say to her dad if he was still alive? And then stick around because I have an important announcement about Chatter That Matters.
Hi, it's Tony Chapman, host of Chatter That Matters, presented by RBC. Ideas matter. Ideas are the oxygen of human endeavor. They breathe life into how we work, live, and play. Ideas let us create and innovate and overcome complex and often challenging circumstances. Big or small, revolutionary or evolutionary, almost every positive step forward begins with a good idea. So bring your ideas to RBC because they matter, and they'll bring theirs because you matter. Ideas happen at RBC.
I get this call. I'm stationed in the Coast Guard from my dad in Montreal. He says, can you come get me in Montreal and take me across the border? Some bad guys are after me and they're going to murder me. Like, he's my dad. I'm going to go get him. Well, long story short, it ended up with the SWAT team tackling me onto the carpet and me being almost arrested and going to prison.
Joining me today is Leslie Bradford Scott, who's written this extraordinary book called The Liar's Playbook, a memoir of family and crime, and it's a true story. So you're now climbing these rungs, you're getting confidence, you realize that you have talent, everything's really going in the right direction. Your mother shows up and hands you this 175,000 word manuscript that your dad had penned in prison, saying she should have burnt it. But instead of her dealing with it, she sort of just throws it on your lap. And what I loved about it, you just put it in a sock drawer. You weren't about to interrupt the fact that you were on the right trajectory.
I was like, I'm busy running this company that had thousands of moving parts. I don't have time to dig up this, excavate this drama. So I stuffed it in my hats and mitts drawer in my mudroom.
What made you eventually pull it out and say, I'm going to read this?
It was November and I needed hat and some mitts. That's really what it was. I was like, oh, you dead father. I feel like I need to deal with you now.
Did you just kind of open it up in the middle and read it? Or did you start saying, I sat down from the beginning and next thing you know, 10 cups of tea later, you've plowed through it?
Yeah, it was something like that. I grabbed my tea first, made myself comfortable with a blanket on the couch. And the first page, it's like the blurb of a book is what he's written on the first page. And it says that he was fencing jewels and running arms on behalf of the CIA to fund the Contras and the FBI. And I'm like, what? And in that moment, he says he was set up by corrupt Canadian police. And that's how he was led to a life of crime, that it wasn't his fault. And he kept it a secret to protect his family. So I'm thinking, oh my God, my entire life, I've been running from my father's legacy. I thought he was the villain. Maybe he was the hero. Maybe he was just protecting us.
You must have had the angel and the devil going, that's all BS. I mean, this guy was a con man. He sent me out 15 years old to run his diamonds, and the other side's going, maybe this is true. Must have been some tension in that, or did you immediately go, you know what, I'm going to believe him because he's my dad?
In that moment, after reading that book, I was 12. I was 12-year-old girl wanting my daddy to be the good guy. And that's the first round of reads I did. It was that feeling. It didn't come later. Journalist, investigator, detective Leslie, as I bifurcated myself in order to get through the process, when I investigated and interviewed people, that's the Leslie that said, wait a minute here.
One of the things that you talk about is the fact that whether he was set up or not, his incarceration and his fighting back helped shape a legal precedent that protects civil liberties.
Yes, how strange is that to know that your dad, the bad guy, also did something really great for Canadian law. And it's used widely today. The Garofoli application is used widely today to protect people's civil liberties. I mean, it's hard to know. Like, should I be proud of that? I think so.
We made reference to your daughters, and while your dad was alive, they knew him as Papa. And back then you were still thinking this Jekyll and Hyde. How did you ever reconcile their need for sort of the family tree and your reality that the branch in the family tree had been sort of discarded when you were a very young girl?
Humans all make mistakes. At this point in my kid's life, my dad that I knew of was on the straight and narrow. He was living a quiet life and things were safe. And so safety was first. Is this a safe environment for my kids? And should my children have a relationship with their grandfather? Will it be a net positive or a net negative? And I had decided we'd give it a try. And it turned out to be a beautiful, positive relationship in their life that they will never forget. They loved their Papa.
And how did Papa come back in your sense after reading the manuscript many years later? How have you reconciled who he was and how you might have mattered to him?
These stories are complicated because usually people are not 100% monster, right? I reconcile it because I look back and I understand where my dad came from because of the investigation. I understand how he got into criminal activities. I understand his childhood better. And when I look at the big picture, understanding somebody's damage doesn't excuse their behavior, but it diffuses anger. It allows you to see the patterns and it allows you to break them in your own family, which we are constantly doing. And there's a lot of peace in that.
You know, I just did a show with a medium that believes that we're all spirits inhabiting these human bodies and that we're going to eventually have an opportunity to reconcile and talk to the people we met along our way. Assuming she's correct, and one day you have a chance to sit down with your dad many years after reading that manuscript, what would you say to him? Would it be a 12-year-old girl or would it be Leslie Bradford Scott today?
It would be the curious Leslie Bradford Scott who wanted to know, hey, Dad, why did you write this book? Is it the greatest PR campaign for your soul? Or did you want to get it published? Why did you write it? And did you really love me?
You know, Leslie, I always end my podcast with my 3 takeaways. I've never done this before. I know you're not expecting this, but What are your 3 takeaways that you think would be of immense benefit to my audience?
There's so many. Where you're born and who you are born to is a lottery. You have no control over that. The people, your family who shapes you, they do not get to define you. You get to do that. And if you're on the wrong track, you can reinvent yourself. And you can, like me, I've done it over and over again. I've reinvented myself so many times because if you're not happy, you might be lying to yourself about why. If you're stuck in a relationship, for example, and you're fantasizing about the life you have outside that relationship, you're lying to yourself. And no destination worth going has ever been built on a lie. You can tell yourself the truth and get out of a situation that you're unhappy with. And it only takes 30 seconds of bravery to open a new door and step through it. And once you step through it, but the truth doesn't always set you free. It's highly destabilizing. It'll often bring down your whole life, and you have to take that shrapnel and put it back together the way you want to. Build something durable with it. But once you walk through that door and you start that process, it just takes a little bit of courage every single day to do that.
Leslie Bradford Scott, this has been an incredible conversation.
Thank you, Tony.
Your 3 takeaways are takeaways that everyone, not many people, everyone can apply to their life. I can't imagine living your life, but I'm glad you shared it the way you have. The fact that you just keep going and reinventing and finding new rungs to climb. Someone that's at peace, someone that's incredibly confident of who they are and why they matter and the impact that they're making on their family and life. So for all of that and more, I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Tony. I just want to comment on the chatter that matters, the word matter. My entire life, I didn't feel I mattered. And now I know that I matter.
Over the next few weeks, Chatter That Matters will cross 2 million downloads. This is a number I couldn't possibly imagine when I started my podcast over 360 episodes ago. This has truly been my labor of love, and I'm so proud of our 4.9 star rating. And for the past 18 months, Listen Notes has ranked our show in the top 0.5% of most popular podcasts in the world. Credit must go where credit is due. The first people to honor is you, for listening, for sharing and subscribing, for sending me ideas for new shows. Second, my incredible guests. I never imagined talking to Nobel Peace Prize winners or gold medalists, thought leaders, Grammy Award winners, change makers, best-selling authors, refugees. So many people have taught me that life can knock you down hard, but it doesn't always get the final word. Third, my team, with a special nod to Chris Camp, my editor. And last but not least, RBC. RBC has been with me since day one. The show would not happen without their incredible support. And I hope you stay with me for the next few minutes to talk about what I've learned from walking RBC's halls for the past 5 years. Many of you know them as a bank. I know them as an organization and a foundation with a heart that beats with positivity and possibility. And today, with Canada at an inflection point, where so many Canadians are struggling, where many of our youth question if they even have a future, what RBC does matters more than ever. And what they do is what we need all organizations to do, to have a higher purpose than simply making profit. Let's start with our youth, as they are truly the future of Canada. Since 2017, RBC and their foundation have invested $500 million in Future Launch. And through hundreds of partner programs and big ideas, 9 million youth have gained access to skills, training, job experience, mentorship, and work-integrated learning. RBC and their foundation has also focused on the mental well-being of this generation and, in fact, our entire nation. Over $118 million has been raised through RBC's Race for the Kids. They back over 150 mental health organizations and are investing in brain health, women's health, elderly care, and providing access to counseling when it's needed most. And speaking of health, RBC is investing in the workers who managed through the pandemic and today are being challenged to cope with demand. They're investing in programs for healthcare workers to upskill and reskill, and to invite more practitioners in from other countries and provide them with the resources required to earn accreditation here. Farming is another big focus of RBC, from thought leadership and programs to bring new technology to farms, to the capital required to keep families on the farm. Entrepreneurship and small business is the lifeblood of Canada, and RBC is working with Indigenous, with equity-deserving communities, and across Canada to encourage more people to dream and do. And for families trying to make it through the month, RBC and their foundations providing millions to address food insecurity. They've also partnered with leading universities to provide free courses for every Canadian in the areas of financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and farming. And there's more. I'm going to touch on what RBC is doing for the soul of our community, our arts, our sports, and so much more. Through RBCX Music, aspiring artists can receive mentorship, grants, and access to a stage so they can pursue their passion. The same holds true for aspiring artists and filmmakers. Through RBC Training Ground, they identify athletes with Olympic potential and provide much-needed support for them to chase the podium. RBC Community Junior Golf, where they invite children across Canada to not only learn the game of golf and all the manners that come with it, but to access tees for as little as $5. Disaster relief, RBC is there. Insider communities are there to support festivals like Light Up Chinatown and Inside Out. They're investing billions to make housing more affordable. This is not marketing. This is a company that realizes with great profit must come great purpose. And it all comes down to 3 words. Ideas happen here. Bring us your ideas and we will bring ours, and together we can make things happen. So thank you to all my listeners, to my guests, to my team, and to all the people I've met at RBC with shining eyes and a passion to do more. Here's to Canada, a country that matters to you, to me, and to RBC. It's Tony Chapman. Let's chat soon.